Playoff game, the Washington Redskins defeated us 70-7.
George Halas was a football legend and co-founder of the American Professional Football Association, which became the NFL in 1920. Inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 1963, he became the oldest head coach in NFL history at 72 years and 318 days during his final game in December 1967, a record that stood for over 50 years. Tragically, his battle with pancreatic cancer cut his life, leaving the football community deeply saddened. George Halas passed away from pancreatic cancer in Chicago on October 31st, 1983, at the age of 88. He is entombed at St. Adalbert Catholic Cemetery in Niles, Illinois, a peaceful resting place for a man who dedicated his life to football. At the time of his death, Halas was the last surviving participant from the historic meeting that led to the formation of the NFL back in 1920. Halas' early life and career were quite the journey. After spending a year playing with the pros, also known as the All-Stars, he moved to Decatur, Illinois to work for the A.E. Staley Company, which made starch. While there, he didn't just focus on his job as a sales representative. He also played outfield for the company's baseball team and served as the player coach for the Decatur Staleys, the company's sponsored football team. In 1920, Halas took a huge step when he represented the Staleys at a meeting in Canton, Ohio, where the American Professional Football Association was formed. This meeting was a pivotal moment in football history, setting the stage for what we now know as the NFL. After the Staleys finished their season, Halas and some teammates had a unique opportunity to join the Chicago Stames for a game against the Chicago Cardinals. It was a memorable match that ended in a 14-14 tie, marking one of the few times he played for a team other than the Staleys or Bears. Despite having a strong record of 10 wins, 1 loss, and 2 ties, the Staleys faced serious financial issues. But Halas wasn't deterred. He took on the challenge of upgrading the roster, transforming the team into a formidable league. In a big move, Augustus E. Staley, the company's founder, handed over control of the team to Halas so he could relocate it to Chicago, where they had a larger fan base. Staley even gave Halas a $5,000 bonus for the move, as long as he kept the Staleys' name for the 1921 season. With teammate Edward Dutch Sterneman as a partner, Halas officially launched the Chicago Staleys at Cubs Park, which would later become Wrigley Field. Thanks to Halas' good relationship with Cubs owner William Wrigley Jr. and President Bill Veeck Sr., the Staleys were able to maneuver their schedule effectively and ultimately won their first NFL championship that same year. The following year, Halas decided it was time for a change and renamed the team the Chicago Bears. He wanted a name that honored the Cubs, reasoning that since baseball players were called Cubs, then football players must be Bears because they were much bigger. Halas wore many hats. He was the team's coach, played as an end, and took care of ticket sales and running the club. His playing days were impressive too. He was named to the NFL's All-Pro team in the 1920s, with a highlight reel moment in 1923 when he stripped the ball from the legendary Jim Thorpe, recovered the fumble, and sprinted 98 yards for a touchdown, a record that stood for nearly 50 years. In 1925, Halas made a major move by persuading Illinois star Red Grange to join the Bears. This was a game changer for the league, helping to elevate its reputation and popularity at a time when it was often viewed as a place for less respectable players. After a decade, Halas stepped back in 1930, retiring as a player and handing coaching duties to Ralph Jones while remaining the team's owner. But the Great Depression hit hard, putting the Bears in a tough financial situation, even though they won the NFL title in 1932. In 1933, Halas returned as coach to save money on a head coach's salary, leading the Bears for another 10 seasons. His 1934 team was strong, but lost in the championship game to the New York Giants. During the late 1930s, he and University of Chicago coach Clark Shaughnessy developed developed the T formation, a revolutionary offensive strategy that led to the Bears crushing the Washington Redskins 73-0 in the 1940 NFL Championship game, still the most lopsided victory in NFL history. Other teams quickly scrambled to adopt this new style. Halas' innovative approach included recruiting standout players like Sid Luckman, a passing star from Columbia University who played quarterback for the Bears from 1939 to 1950. Halas was always on the lookout for top talent, and during his coaching years, he had future Hall of Famers like Bobby Lane and George Blanda on his roster. When World War II began, Halas didn't shy away from serving his country. He rejoined the Navy as a lieutenant commander. Serving under Admiral Chester Nimitz, he spent 20 months overseas focusing on the welfare and recreational activities of the 7th Fleet. His service earned him the Bronze Star, and he returned to coaching in 1946. In his first year back, the Bears clinched another championship. One noteworthy initiative he started was a charity football game to benefit the armed forces, which raised significant funds during the late 1950s. After a brief hiatus in 1956 and 1957, Halas returned to coach for a final decade. He won his 6th and final league title in 1963, and he made history by being the first coach to achieve both 200 and 300 wins. Halas' impact on football was nothing short of legendary. He was honored the NFL Coach of the Year by the Sporting News, the Associated Press, and UPI not once, but twice in 1963 and 1965. Though Halas' victory total stood for many years, in 1993, it was finally surpassed by Miami Dolphins coach Don Shula, who speaks to the competitive nature of the NFL and how records can change hands over time. From the 1984 season onward, the Chicago Bears had honored him by placing the initials GSH on their jerseys, a tribute to a man who devoted his life to the team and the sport. In addition to his coaching accolades, Halas received the Navy Distinguished Public Service Award in 1956, which is the highest civilian honor from the Navy. His influence is also recognized in the NFL through 2 important awards: the George Halas Trophy, given to the National Football Conference champion, and the George S. Halas Courage Award, awarded by the Pro Football Writers Association. To honor his contributions, the Chicago Bears retired his number 7, a rare tribute that speaks volumes about his significance to the franchise. You might also find it interesting that the Pro Football Hall of Fame is located on George Halas Drive, further solidifying his legacy in the sport. In 2016, he was inducted into the Engineering Hall of Fame at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, recognizing not just his football prowess, but also his academic achievements. After the 1967 season, Halas retired as head coach, making him the oldest coach in league history at that time. He continued to be the principal owner of the Bears for the rest of his life. Although he officially stepped back from being the general manager in 1963, he was still involved in the franchise's football decisions until 1974, when he hired Jim Finks for that role. In a remarkable twist of fate, Halas was honored in both 1970 and 1980 as the only individual who had been involved in the league for its first 50 and 60 years. His son, George Jr., served as the president of the Bears until his untimely death at the age of 54 in 1979, which must have been a tough loss for Halas. One of Halas' final significant moves as an owner was hiring Mike Ditka as head coach in 1982. Ditka was not only a talented coach, but also someone who had played under Halas in the 1960s, making the decision deeply personal. In the 1971 made-for-television movie Brian's Song, which tells the touching story of the friendship between Chicago Bears players Brian Piccolo and Gale Sayers, Halas was portrayed by Jack Warden. Warden's performance was so compelling that it earned him an Emmy Award, highlighting just how deeply Halas' story resonated beyond the football field. Despite facing challenges in his later years, Halas' legacy as a football pioneer and leader is undeniable. His journey from the early days of the NFL to becoming one of its most influential figures is a testament to his love for the game. That's it for this one, but if you happen to like NFL legends, make sure to check out our latest videos on our channel NFL Icons. I'm sure you'll love it.